We're back. Today, I wanted to hear a little bit more about you. You know, you are a founder of Abundance Chiropractic, and not only do you love chiropractic, but you love natural health and
in general, yeah.
all things.
And I hate this system.
In case you didn't know. It's hard to tell sometimes with you.
I know, right?
But I wanted to start way back, because a lot of times this stuff comes from when you're a kid.
Yep.
First of all, you did not grow up around here. We're in Florida. You did not grow up here.
No, not at all. I grew up in Puerto Rico, born and raised in San Juan, so the capital. Okay. My mom
in the city?
In the city, okay. Yeah. My mom had me at 19 years of age. My dad was 20 when they had me.
So they knew a lot by then, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they made a lot of things. So I was born. They were obviously young. They were I wouldn't say health conscious, but my parents did take care of themselves. They were athletes. My mom was a swimmer. Okay. My dad played volleyball. Obviously, my sister, she was a runner. Mm-hmm. I don't do any of that. I didn't get.
Are you sure you belong?
I didn't get the athletic genes. I always tell people I'm more of a poet. Let's put it that way. So growing up, obviously everything went well, but I can think back as a kid, I was pretty sick. You know, I would go a lot to the allergists. I would get the shots. I was allergic to a lot of things. I remember growing up and having to take medications daily, one or two pills, just to deal with the allergies. And it would be allergies from food or from the environment, you name it. My mom tells me when I was like probably 1 or 2 years of age, I would get seizures from the fever. So pretty unhealthy growing up, I think.
Like, that's not just a little sniffle then. That's like,
no. What
other symptoms did you have? Like, so you, like...
I would get a fever. It would go full blast, and then I would get...
From the allergens?
Or from whatever, yeah. Okay. And seizures as a kid. So, I mean, I talk to my mom about it now, and it almost sounded normal. Like, they downplayed it. Mm-hmm. But looking back at it now, being in healthcare, I'm like, well, that definitely wasn't normal. So growing up, I was kind of sick. There wasn't I don't remember going to chiropractors growing up. Yeah. I remember one visit to a naturopath doctor.
Okay, so they kind of knew a little bit.
Yeah, they were trying to get into it. So I went to a naturopath. They told me about what to eat, what not to eat. But back then, the knowledge was basic. So it was like, just make sure you don't eat white bread, eat whole wheat bread or whatever, the brown one.
They still say that.
Yeah, they still say, yeah. Instead of doing regular pasta, do the brown pasta.
Whole wheat pasta.
Brown rice instead of white rice. So it was...
There's controversy about that.
Yeah, there's controversy. So now that I look back at it, I was like, that was the worst advice you could give my parents. But I did it for a little bit, didn't do much with it, unhealthy growing up. I remember going to McDonald's a lot.
I was going to say, tell me about what you ate, because, I mean... And I probably am incorrect, but some people might go, oh, you grew up in a different country. They cook more. But what kind of ingredients really are being used? Did you have some just innately good food there, or was it all packaged?
I would say my mom did cook. She doesn't pride herself of being a great cook, though. But she did cook, thankfully. But there was a lot of cereal in the morning. Okay. I remember growing up.
So prepackaged.
Prepackaged. A lot of white rice. That's Puerto Rico. We eat a lot of rice and beans, etc. But I remember,
beans.
It was we ate a lot of good stuff in general, but also a lot of bad stuff. So I remember, I mean, they were young, they were always on the go, working a lot. So I remember eating McDonald's a lot, and my grandparents would take me to McDonald's.
Same type of food as we have, like the McDonald's are similar here and there. Same.
So it wasn't very healthy. Obviously, I wasn't overweight or anything like that, but I did had a lot of the symptoms. I had asthma attacks since I was little, so I would have the albuterol pump, the inhalers. So a lot of the chronic health issues that most kids would have nowadays because of the food choices in general that they have. So asthma, allergies, seizures as well.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah, febrile seizures. Those were the main things as well. So a lot of medications. I would always have like a napkin or something just because sniffles all the time. So
you had the tissue in your sleeve?
Tissue, yeah. I remember
You're like the older woman with the tissue.
I remember in school, I had so bad allergies that I had a handkerchief.
Yeah.
Which is the dumbest thing. I don't even know why I had a handkerchief. But I had one. I was like blowing my nose, and I think a teacher made fun of it. Oh my God. And my mom went crazy about it. So it was so bad that even my mom, I remember 4th grade, we had like plugins in the wall. The teacher loved plugins and the smells, and it would destroy me. Like, they were terrible. So she would have to go to school multiple times to tell the teacher, you got to get rid of the plugins. Like, those plugins are literally destroying him. So there was always a fight about the environment, but there was never a conversation about, let's work internally, get your body stronger, so that it doesn't matter where you go or where you are, you don't have to worry about the environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't a very healthy upbringing. My grandfather was a pharmacist, so there was a pill
for everything.
For everything, yeah. My other grandfather from my dad's side, he was a pharmaceutical rep.
So again, a pill for everything.
A pill for everything.
You got samples.
Yeah, I got samples, right? So you had the medications from both sides. My grandmother that was married to the pharmaceutical rep, man, she loved medical doctors. Growing up, she I feel like she was always in the hospital. And at some point, I remember my dad joking.
Some people feel more comfortable there.
My dad used to joke about, it's like, I think she just goes there to socialize, to be honest.
She gets sick of me and goes to the hospital instead.
So she would go a lot of hospital. So growing up, the mindset was a very medicalized mindset. Sure. I wouldn't say we were very healthy in general. And looking back at it now, a lot of our family has passed away from chronic illness, either heart issues or cancer in general. So now looking back at it, there was a big issue.
Well, I mean, and then to bring it back to, kids today, you said something very interesting. You said, looking back, my mom talks about it like it's common, and just from your perspective as a doctor, as a chiropractor, and personal experience, what are some of the symptoms today that people just think are common for kids that you're looking at when they come in your office? You're like, this is not okay.
Yeah, the four A's: allergies, asthma, autism, ADHD. The 4 A's, I mean, it's just insane. I mean, my sister she's mentioned in the podcast before, but she grew up taking pills for Ritalin for ADHD. So we kind of had the 3 of them. We didn't have the autism part, which, who knows, probably we got tested for it. We'd probably be positive as well, right? Because
or if your mom had another kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, which brings an interesting point. So that's awesome, the 4 A's, like, not awesome that people have them, but awesome, like, I never thought about it to categorize it in that way, and it's so true. But it's interesting. Do you believe, and maybe you can, speak to this a little bit about, maybe each kid has a susceptibility?
Yep.
But it's still the same process in a sense. Like, tell me a little bit.
And there might have a genetic predisposition, right? We've talked about epigenetics before, where you have you can turn on or turn off genes, and certain things will express themselves. Right. I would guess that as a pregnant mom, you're gonna be going through different stressors in each pregnancy. Right. So I cannot talk obviously for my mom, but I could assume that being 19 years of age, there's a lot of stress involved. Number one, you're probably not
planned even.
Probably wasn't planned. No,
right.
They were so young. And then on top of that, probably the food choices. You're 19,
and you don't have money.
You don't have money, right? So I think the environmental factors of the food, the stressors, that played a part. So I think what mom is going through the pregnancy, and the other part is whether it's a medicalized birth or not. Yeah. I was born naturally. I don't recall if my mom had epidural or she had a Pitocin in general. I can't recall my sister either. I know my sister, when she was born, she couldn't breathe. So there was definitely a lack of oxygen in the birthing process. Yeah. But I think the environmental factors and the choices that mom makes definitely influence what happens to the baby.
Both pre and during pregnancy. Which is, I mean, I know you personally do take care of pregnant women,
moms, yeah.
And you probably even encourage people, if they're planning on getting pregnant,
you got to get ready. Yeah.
So come see you even
It's all about preparation, getting the body ready for it.
Yeah. But it's not too late, even if you do during the pregnancy, like even if you haven't before during the pregnancy.
Yeah, and the baby's constantly developing for 9 months. So, I mean, there's no point of being healthy for 8 months and then the last month you're like, I'm just going to go rogue. It's like, yeah, exactly. Because then all the work that you did, it's pretty much gone.
Right. And some people don't know this, but you actually, sometimes, I don't know if you still do, but you adjust brand new newborn babies, correct?
Actually, yesterday I saw a 3-week-old baby. Okay. Nice. Perfectly healthy. The pregnancy was excellent until the end. When mom went to deliver, unfortunately, the baby got stalled. It wouldn't just keep going down, so they end up doing a C-section. Again, the baby was still perfectly healthy, so we're seeing him for just maintenance, making sure that his spine is moving properly. And we noticed that he's able to breastfeed normally. However, he favors one side. So we knew there was something off with the neck. So we're working on it. So newborn babies.
What's the youngest you've ever seen?
I seen a few hours old. I think 2 hours old.
Wow.
Yeah, in a home birth.
And in a home birth.
That's pretty
awesome.
Cool.
I had we had back when we lived in another state, we had a chiropractor who his daughter, they were going to do home birth, ended up having to go to the hospital because of some complications, and when the baby came out, they were going to take it to the NICU, and he's like, hold on, give me a second, and he adjusted his child right there, and instantly the problems cleared up, and they didn't ever have to go to the NICU.
The best way to explain, because I've seen videos as well of other friends of mine that are chiropractors, I've seen babies that were born couldn't breathe, and the chiropractor went in, boom, 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 and the baby just pretty much came to life.
You have a benefit when you have kids one day.
Yeah.
You'll be like, I'm adjusting.
I'm ready to roll.
You're like, I'm ready.
Literally, I seen some crazy things. I think the best way to explain it is, baby comes out, they have these subluxations or misalignments or dysfunctions in the spine. It obviously affects the nervous system. So when you go in there and adjust a baby, which, by the way, people think we're going to crack their neck. No, we're literally putting our pinky in a specific spot. Yeah. It's actually the same pressure that we would use to test the rightness of a tomato or an avocado.
Right.
And as the joint moves, it almost frees up the nervous system and everything baby just boost starts. Yeah, baby response. Yeah. It's pretty cool, very crazy.
It begs the question, and you wonder, would your childhood have been different had you known?
Absolutely. I wish my mom would have known.
Yeah.
Not only about chiropractic in general, but about what truly means to be healthy.
Yeah.
I think they didn't know about it. And I know they didn't know about it. Because even chiropractic, my parents didn't know anything about chiropractic before I went to chiropractic school. It was just a traditional mindset, pill, surgery, go to the pediatrician. The pediatrician back then, he was like God, and the pediatrician was right here. It's like Jesus. Like, would you guys?
Was there a priest in there too, or
no,
just
that's pretty much the same? So when I look back at it, I was like, man, you guys put so much faith in this guy, and I was never truly healthy.
That's insane.
And I cannot blame them. It's just the information wasn't there.
It's funny you say that because people they put so much faith in a pediatrician or in a doctor, and even if they don't get better, they still have the same amount of faith, which is if in any other arena, like if you had I know you lift, if you were seeing somebody, a coach for that manner, and you didn't get stronger.
Yeah, I got to look for something else.
But that's not true.
No. My parents just kept going to the same guy until I was probably 16 or something like that.
It's just that belief in the system that you've been in.
And he's the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy.
He's the guy. And it was different back. I mean, I'm 33 right now, and probably was even more different back then. Mm-hmm. But the pediatrician had a very intimate relationship with the family. Yeah. Right? It's like it was
a friendship.
Yeah, usually they saw you when you were a year old and 2, and now they're 16. You've grown. You're still there. So you don't
remember when you were 1 year old.
So you kind of like put all your faith in this guy that's been there since you were born, essentially.
Yeah. Now, something shifted a little bit later on. I've heard a little bit of your story, and your grandparents, who were big influence in your life as far as the traditional medicine goes, something shifted. You want to share about that?
Yeah. So it starts back in 2012. So in 2012, I'm in college at this point. I'm studying pre-med because I wanted to study medicine. I want to be a medical doctor, potentially a sports medicine guy.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
Because you're so athletic.
No, yeah, I mean, I was so athletic.
You're right? Like, if I can't be athletic, I might as well see athletic people and help them.
It was the dumbest thing ever. Now that I look back at it.
That's funny.
Actually, let's rewind a little bit. So it's about 9th or 10th grade. And there's this program in Puerto Rico where you can actually go to a hospital and shadow medical doctors and see if this is something you want to do.
Yeah.
So my mother signed me up for this program. I went to a hospital in Puerto Rico, and they put me, I don't know why, but I shadowed the geriatric floor. It was the worst experience ever. It was just so boring.
For a 10th grade boy?
For 10th grade.
You're like, it's very quiet.
I was just walking around with a white coat behind these guys, these medical doctors, and literally this was the experience. You would go in, see this old person, ask them a few questions, and for the next 30, 45 minutes, you would go into a cubicle and you would just document everything you experienced. And that was it. So you would see 1 or 2 patients per hour, and the rest was documentation. I was like, do I really want to do this? And one of the experiences that I remember, which my parents know about this, one day we go into a doctor's office, to a patient's room, and the doctor's asking questions. So they tell me, it's like, all right, let's check the feet, because they wanted to. They were checking for edema, like inflammation. And when I pull up the bed sheet, essentially the guy doesn't have legs. I was like, why would you ask me that? Like that's the dumbest thing ever. I mean, you have it in your notes. So that was a little bit weird. That was off. And then like 2 weeks later, some virus came around. I think it was the one of those things that come every 2 years. Yeah. So they shut down the shadowing program just because the risk of the virus. I was like, I'm out. So I go to college. I'm studying pre-med just because I still wanted to be a medical doctor. And in 2012, I was actually studying throughout the day, and then at night I would work at a kiosk in a shopping center that sold hot dogs. That was like my job back then. And about that same time, there was a lot of things happening, but my parents were getting divorced. My grandfather had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer.
Which one?
The pharmaceutical rep.
Look at that.
So the pharmaceutical rep was being diagnosed with esophageal cancer. He was the type of guy. He was a vet and was born in a coffee plantation in the middle of the island. So very rough guy, smoked from the moment he was probably 15 years old, drank hard liquor as well. In Puerto Rico, we have Bacardi, and there's a lot of white rum involved. So
just in general.
Yeah, just in general. So a lot of bad choices, unfortunately. He stopped smoking, I believe, when he was 40 years of age, when my aunt was born. But still, 20, 30 years of accumulation of toxins in the body, it kind of adds up. So one day he's eating breakfast, and as he's eating, he's having difficulty swallowing. So he's the guy that doesn't go to doctors, but this time he said, I should see a doctor right now. So he took him.
So he was a pharmaceutical rep, but didn't see doctors.
Didn't see doctors. Isn't that crazy? Right?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like nurses that won't even go. Yeah. So they go to the doctor. They do a PET scan and they find the cancer. And they said, all right, that's a problem. So we got to do a round of chemotherapy. So he went through a round of chemotherapy. He did pretty well, to be honest. The cancer is pretty much in remission, almost gone. The problem was that when they do this therapy, they put a port where they can introduce all that. Yeah. That port got infected, and they couldn't find the infection. Oof. So he spent close to 60 days in a hospital back in December of 2013, more or less. And it was rough. He lost a lot of weight. Yeah. And they didn't know if he was going to be able to make it. Yeah. So my grandfather was dealing with cancer. At the same time, I'm still in college, and I meet this girl.
It's always about a girl, isn't it?
I meet this girl. She's from Puerto Rico, but she lived in Atlanta back then.
Okay.
And this is 2012. So, we were talking. She would come to Puerto Rico visit, and at some point, and I would go back there. And at some point, it got expensive. And I'm 18 or 19 years of age.
And you were living in what state?
It's still in Puerto Rico.
Oh, you were still in Puerto Rico. Okay,
still in Puerto Rico.
You were here. Okay.
Yeah, still in Puerto Rico. So I was going back to Atlanta.
And Puerto Rico.
She would come. So it got expensive. So one day I'm sitting in a couch. It's middle of the day. All of my college friends were just studying for whatever. And I go to Google and I look for healthcare schools in Atlanta, right? Yeah.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, right? And 2 schools show up. First one is Emory School of Medicine. Yep. Which is one of the most prestigious schools of medicine in the country. And underneath it, Life University, right?
I like life.
Yeah, right. So I look at them, again, power of marketing. Yeah. I guess they had Google ads or whatever.
So they had good keywords.
I know, right? So I looked at Emory for a second, and then I clicked that Life University. Chiropractic, never heard about it. Again, I didn't grow up in that background. So click on it, and then here's the best part. They had something called the Life Leadership Weekend, where they would fly you out, expenses paid, hotel, food for 3 days.
As an 18-year-old, you're like...
I could see my girlfriend for free. So I literally signed up for that program. I was like, right, I'm going to go to Atlanta. I didn't even tell her. It was a surprise. But the ultimate goal was a free ticket to Atlanta. So
not to learn more about chiropractic.
Not to learn about chiropractic. I was like, all right, this is free. We're going.
That's a great lead gen, by the way.
I know it worked. So
expensive, but great.
I know. I remember having the conversation with my parents. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to again, I'm 18 or 19, and I have the conversation with this. So, hey, I'm gonna go to Atlanta, and I'm gonna go check out this school. It's chiropractic, and I have a girlfriend. Did she know? And they're like, you have a girlfriend? I was like, yeah. She lives in Atlanta. So, anyways,
So, like, why are you going to Atlanta again? Yeah. Like, school.
It's funny. It's funny because back then, all my friends from college were telling me, like, don't do it.
Really?
Don't do it. Like, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
That's
I promise you're going to come back.
Your 18-year-old friends were a lot more mature than a lot of 18-year-olds.
Literally. Yeah, and they're like, you're going to come back. It's going to be a waste of time. You're making a decision for the wrong, you know. Mm-hmm. So I went to chiropractic to the college for 3 days. I sat down and the president of the school talked. And we had clickers in that presentation, and all you have to do is answer a few questions. And the questions were like, is the body designed to be healthy or sick? Have you ever heard of a subluxation? What's the most important organ in our body? Basic things of biology. And I think out of the 10 questions, I got 9 of them wrong. Literally, 9 of the 10 questions wrong. I was like, wow. But after I left that day, I said, this makes a lot more sense than what I've been taught at this point. And I called my parents and I told them I'm going to be a chiropractor. Like, this makes more sense.
So their lead gen worked.
It worked. And I said, everything that I've learned to this point doesn't work. Yeah. So I think this is different. And I told the girlfriend at the time, I was like, hey, I'm going to be a chiropractor. But around that time, I'm seeing my grandfather struggle.
Yeah.
What's great, that was 2012. So I have about 6 months to pack up, leave Puerto Rico, and go to Atlanta. That was a tough process because I had lived in Little Island all my life. And there was a sense of uncertainty. It's like, do I really want to do this? And I wasn't a great student either.
And just to clarify, there's no chiropractic schools in Puerto Rico.
Right now there is.
There is.
But 10 years ago there wasn't.
Yeah. So at that point there was not. So you had no choice. You had to leave.
I had to leave the island. Yeah. So there was a sense of uncertainty. I wasn't a great student, not because I didn't have the capacity, just because I didn't like schooling in general.
You didn't believe what you were learning.
No. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that I learned in high school, I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, I would.
And in your first year of college too, when you
same thing. Pre-med. I was like, this is stupid. Like, why would I want to learn? I was the worst in math. That was my worst subject. I was like, why am I learning these stupid graphs and lines and numbers?
Out of curiosity, in chiropractic school, do they make you do the gen ed things too, or you just go straight into studying?
You go straight to the basic sciences, like anatomy, and so everything was more focused on what you were studying. So, but yeah, I was like, this is so dumb. So I wasn't a great student.
Yeah.
So every time I would take like a test, a standardized test, for example, my numbers would go very high. But then you would look at my schooling was terrible. So they always said, you have the capacity, you're intelligent. I don't consider myself intelligent. I just feel like I have more stamina and I can push through something longer.
Yeah.
More, I would call it
resiliency.
Yeah, resiliency. Yeah. Like I can do something for a long period of time, whether other people are trying to shoot for excellence every day and they burn out quickly.
Yeah.
But I felt like
disciplined.
I could go for longer. Yeah. Let's put it that way. So 2012, I packed all my stuff. I had to do a layover in Chicago. This is what's crazy about it. It's like in Chicago, 2012, December, we get a call. And
so on your way to chiropractic school.
My way to chiropractic school,
You had to go via Chicago, which is funny.
I think it was because, so my uncle worked for United, I believe, and we got like one of those standby tickets. So we had to stop in Chicago.
So just you or you had your parents?
Yeah, my mom.
You and your
my
mom
they were getting divorced, so my mom was the one that took me.
So you were in Chicago and you get a call.
Yeah, so we get a call.
In the airport, I take it.
I think we were already staying somewhere.
Oh, okay.
We're staying in a hotel or whatever. So we got the call, and my grandmother picked up my mom picked up the call.
And it's your mom's mom.
Yeah, my mom's
not
mom.
married to the grandfather, the other one. Okay.
So it's like, hey, we got an issue. Iran, my uncle who's 45, died. Boom.
How?
Heart attack.
At 45.
45. He was playing basketball, collapsed in the middle of the court, and died from a heart attack.
Your mom's sister.
Yep, mom's sister, yeah. So this guy was the picture of health, looked good, work out every single week, played basketball at nights. and passed away from a heart attack. So that was very shocking. I was like, why would somebody that looked healthy and was doing healthy things would pass away from a heart attack?
Yeah.
Later on, now I look, now it's so easy to look back at everything. It's like everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the definition of health in my family was if you look good, you feel good, you're healthy.
Good.
But it's so far from the truth, right? So that was kind of like a gut punch, just
wake up call.
Kind of going through that. So I wasn't able to go to his funeral because I was on my way to chiropractic school. So I started the program. I moved to Atlanta in 2013, January. Yeah. So I'm 19 going to 20 at that point and started the schooling process. I don't know anybody in Atlanta. The only person I knew in Atlanta was that girlfriend. That was about it.
Right.
So I was kind of like, well, I don't have any friends right now. Everybody told me that I'm going to go back, so I'm not going back.
Because you asked or said.
I'm going to finish what I started.
Yeah.
About 3 months into the program, I actually broke up with a girlfriend. Haven't seen her since. That was it.
Your wife's probably happy about that.
Yes. So broke up with that girl. Never seen her since. But looking back at it, God was playing this game where he was putting everything in line.
It's amazing how he does that.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that as I look back at all these experiences, there's no way I could have prepared for a lot of these things. Yeah. But now looking back, I can connect the dots and say, my goodness, everything happened for a reason, and here we are. So we started. I'm in the program, and around that point, my grandmother from my mom's side.
Yeah, this is a story I think I've heard.
Yeah, so my grandmother from my mom's side, she was actually very healthy. They ate very well.
And she lost her son, though.
Yes. Yeah. No, that was my uncle's, her daughter. Also, so it was from the other side of the family.
Gotcha.
So she was a picture of health, everything. And one day she collapsed, in the house, like fainted. Yeah. So they took her to the hospital and they checked a few tests. It's like the lungs. So she was being diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. She has a lung issue. So, and it had been building up for a long time. The doctors actually said this has probably been going on for 3 or 4 years before that at that point.
Is that the condition that typically shows up younger, or is that one that develops later in life? There's two different ones, and I can't remember.
It can happen at any point, but it's usually going to be determined by an environmental toxins like asbestos, things like that. So she's getting diagnosed with fibrosis, and at the time she develops these tremors. Right. They call them essential tremors. So my grandfather, from my mom's side, the one that was a pharmacist, right? He was also pretty healthy. Right. However, he had around that time, probably 2010, no, before that, probably 10 years before that, he was diagnosed with kidney failure. So he was in dialysis. He had been in dialysis for almost 10 years.
You're like, something's not adding up.
I was like, why am I telling these people, why am I seeing these people being the picture of health yet they're suffering from all these chronic illnesses? So my grandfather for 10 years had been under dialysis for renal failure. So my grandmother took care of him. She would take him 3 times a week to Fresenius or whatever they call the place. And one day she faints, they diagnosed a lung issue. She develops tremors. It's like, oh my God, she goes from 1 pill a day to 11 pills a day, one for every condition and side effect from the pills.
A pill for the pill.
For the pill, for the pill. Yeah.
For the pill.
And now my grandmother, this is back in 2012, 2013, she can't drive because of the tremors. Yeah. And the doctor is saying, like, you cannot touch a car.
So her husband can't get to dialysis.
Yeah, it's tough. So in 2013, I'm in chiropractic school at that point, first year. Yeah. And my grandfather, the one with the kidney failure and dialysis, he passed away in November. And that was kind of like an unexpected type
unexpected.
Because dialysis patients, unfortunately, they don't live that long. And he had been under dialysis, doing the dialysis for almost 12 years at that point. Oh, wow. Okay. So it was a long run,
So he did well considering.
Yeah. So, but
still hard on your grandmother.
Super hard on her. And my grandfather wasn't very supportive about me going to chiropractic school.
Interesting.
I think I didn't know about the discrepancy between chiropractic or the...
You were naive at that point.
I was naive. I thought, you're a chiropractor, you kind of do your thing, but I didn't know there was an internal battle between
I'm in healthcare too.
Chiropractic and medicine. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Going to chiropractic school, I said, hey, I'm going to help people and I'm going to do it naturally. Yeah. But my grandfather didn't love the idea. He's like, you should have become a medical doctor. I was like, dude, I'm going to be able to help a lot of people this route. So when I hear people saying chiropractors are not real doctors or chiropractors are are chiropractors because they weren't able to get into medical school. Yeah. I never tried to get into medical school.
Yeah.
I didn't even try to do it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a thought in my brain that would say, hey, there's an issue. There's a competition going on between medicine and chiropractic. Yeah. I just did it because, again, I had a girlfriend.
I did it for a girl.
For a girl, yeah. So my grandfather passed away, and around that time, I told my grandmother, you should go see a chiropractor. This is it. He's gone. He's not going to get in the way. You should try it out. So she goes to a chiropractor in Puerto Rico. They take a few x-rays of her spine, and her neck was a mess. Like a lot of arthritis. Her neck was shifted forward like this. Essentially, the spinal cord was being stretched out, pulled from every angle. So they started adjusting her, and about a month in, I get a call from her. I was like, hey, how's everything going with chiropractic? And she says, and I'm in chiropractic school. So I don't know anything about chiropractic, but I'm in chiropractic school.
I hope it's good because I'm studying this. I get it now.
Yeah, exactly. So she says, you know what? Every time I get adjusted, my tremors go away. I was like, no way.
So this was your original case study.
That's it.
And you're like praying that it worked.
It worked. Yeah. So she told me every time I get adjusted, my tremors go away.
Yeah. I
was like, no way. She's like, yeah. I'm just going to stop taking the morning medication for the tremors. I was like, that's awesome, man. About 6 months in, we talked every month, but about 6 months in, she asked her to check up with her neurologist. Old school guy that doesn't probably believe in chiropractic either. He tells her, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. Wow. Your tremors are getting better. And I'm going to take you off the evening medication. And about a year in, my grandmother, her tremors are 80% better at that point. They take her off the tremor medication. They tell her you can drive again. Right? And I was like, oh my God, holy shit.
It worked.
It works. This thing works. Which, by the way, when I went to chiropractic school, I didn't even know that that most people use chiropractic for back pain and neck pain.
You just went.
Yeah, I just went. I was like, I'm going to learn about this. And my grandmother's getting better from tremors. So all this time I thought it was in,
just for pain.
Yeah. No, I didn't know it was for pain.
You didn't even know that?
No,
that's what, okay.
I didn't know it was for pain. I thought it was for like nerves and things like that, which I was actually correct. Right. But most people use it for pain.
Most people back then, traditionally, chiropractic was very much just like, you were in a car accident, you need your back fixed. Exactly. And actually still today to a certain extent.
They still use it, yeah, that way, yeah. But back then I didn't even know it was for that. I mean, again, we didn't grow up with chiropractors. In Puerto Rico, we don't have personal injury like they have here in Florida, so I just didn't know much. So her tremors are getting better, and then the lung issue. This is the best part. She goes to a pneumologist. They do a lung function test, and what they notice when the results come back is that her lung function is actually improving. Her oxygenation levels were actually getting better as she was getting chiropractic care, and they couldn't explain it because they're like the imaging is showing that there's still a lot of the scarring in the lungs. The lungs haven't recovered, but they're working better. What they could come up with was that the areas that were good still, they were working twice as hard to keep her alive. Granted, the doctors, when they diagnosed her, they said 3 to 5 years, that's it. You have 3 to 5 years to live with this condition. There's 2 medications in the market, which you can get, but they're going to be tough on your body. They're going to be extremely expensive as well because insurance doesn't cover everything. She tried one of them, and it gave her the worst bleeding in her GI tract, so she had to stop doing it. So she didn't have a lot of options, but the only thing she did differently was chiropractic every single week. Yeah, and she got better, and 3 to 5 years to live. So she was diagnosed around 2012. They did say it was there before that, so let's assume 2010. My grandmother's still alive today. 2025, 15 years later.
And Kit, is her lungs better now than they were then?
No, they're rough now.
They're rough now. Okay.
So
because you can't recover the part that was already damaged.
Now that it's gone, it's gone. My grandmother.
But all the parts that are still there are.
Yeah, but here's the best part. They gave her 3 to 5 years to live. She cannot drive. Gets back driving. Stopped taking a lot of the medications. My grandmother was present in my what they call like a blue coat ceremony. Yeah. She was there. She was there for the graduation.
So did she switch like some of the other things that you teach people, like the habits and lifestyle?
Everything she learned, she knew, all to this point about health, she threw it in a garbage can, essentially.
So she did. So she switched her eating. She switched her everything.
She switched her eating. she threw away her pants, Teflon pants. She started doing a lot
all
of
the stuff you talk about on this podcast. She does.
She did it. She did chiropractic. She was the biggest proponent of chiropractic at that. I think she's like 81 at this point. Yeah, 80, 81.
She took what would have been a life cut short.
Yeah,
she's
for sure.
Nice
I think if she would have not had that lung condition, at 90 she would still be around, no issue. But it's a tough condition. So now, 15 years later since the diagnosis, she's in rough shape. I mean, she's laying down. She can barely move a lot because she gets fatigued.
Yeah.
She has oxygen in her bedside all the time. They have to help her a lot. So, but what I tell people is, it's not that chiropractic didn't work. It's that it gave my grandmother 10 years extra.
Or more.
That she would have not had with me. And she was there for, again, graduation, ceremonies, all the important events that I had through the doctorate. She was there.
Yeah.
That's worth it.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like second year of chiropractic school. So I said, holy crap, I made the right decision.
Well, let's talk about that. So now you're like fully vested, right? You're like, this works. I'm in. And this works more than you probably even thought it did.
Literally.
Right? But I'm assuming chiropractic school wasn't all like rainbows and unicorns, as they say.
It's so hard.
So tell us about your experience. I know that you had some big events happen during those years, and probably pretty formative events. So share some of those.
So the program, they made it sound easier than what it was. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's good marketing.
Yeah, it's great marketing. It's like, no, it's going to be 3.5 years. You're going to have the time of your life, and
is it easy? Can I do it? Does it work? That's what you're asking.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like, let's go for it. So I started chiropractic school. It's a 3.5 year program if you do it correctly,
But a lot of people take longer, correct?
A lot of people take longer. So I was 19 when I got to Life University, and I graduated at 24. So I did my doctorate and my bachelor's almost simultaneously.
So 3.5 years to get both of those typically? Or
6.
Okay, you did both.
Almost at the same time.
So you actually finished quicker than the 3.5 years.
So that's why I graduated at 24.
Because normally it's 3.5 years just to get the undergrad part, and then you go.
And then doctorate 3.5 more. If you do it correctly, if you take
you did it incorrectly in the correct way.
Yeah, exactly. I did very fast. So it's funny because my friends used to call me back then Pichon, which Pichon in English is little bird, because I was one of the youngest ones in the class. And all my friends
a lot of people go back when they're older.
Yeah, a lot of my friends were 28 back then, 28, 29, which at this point I'm 33. So now we're celebrating their 40-year-old birthdays.
Now you're like, I'm glad I'm a little bird. Look at me go.
So they were graduating when I had this age right now. But it was a great experience. But everybody was older back then. Yeah. Most 10 or 15 years ago, everybody that went to chiropractic school, usually there was two types of people. Career change. Mm-hmm. Because they went through chiropractic and it just changed your life, or you were born in a chiropractic family.
Then there was you.
And there was me that I just was the black sheep, essentially. I just showed up. Yeah. So program was tough. It was just a lot of classes. It was a trimester system, a quarterly system. So every 11 weeks you would change again. So that worked to my favor because I didn't like studying, but I had good retention. So I could retain a lot of information in 10 or 11 weeks, and then we'd do the next thing.
You have like a photographic memory.
That's what they say. I don't know. I don't think it's working that well anymore. But that's what Genesis, my wife, says, that I can see something and remember it. So that's why I always tell people I don't consider myself smart, to be honest. I just can see stuff and remember it. So I'm going through the program a year in, and again, I'm 21, 22 at this point. Most of my friends had cars, but I didn't have a lot of the financial support that I have was myself. It was just the loans that I was taking because I didn't want to put my parents in that position to pay for anything. So I try to not get anything. If anything, they paid for choosing my cell phone and whatever, no more stuff. Yeah. So I'm going through the chiropractic program, and I had a little motorcycle. And I would go...
Like a moped type of thing?
Like a moped, yeah. It was a moped. I bought it. I was like, this will get me, back and forth from the school to my apartment at that point. So one day, second year of chiropractic school, it's like 6 a.m. in the morning. It was super early because we had a final at 7, so you had to be there early. And it was a very important final. It was orthopedic diagnosis. Okay. And it was one of the toughest classes in the entire program. So I prepped for it for weeks. I was like, all right, I'm ready. So I'm in my moped. It's cold, so I'm like, all right, let's go. And I lived like 4 or 5 minutes away from the school, so
like
it wasn't
4 or 5 minute moped ride.
a moped ride. Yeah, walking would have been like an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm going my moped, and I'm going through what they call Cobb Parkway in Marietta, Georgia, which is where I went to school, and I'm going full speed, and full speed means like 30 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baby,
so I'm going
shaking
like,
at 30.
oh my God. Yeah. So I'm going at 30 miles per hour in this stupid car. I don't know if it was a guy or a gal. I really didn't see it. They come down a little hill into the parkway. I guess they didn't see me. So they bump me from the side. And in a moped, any little bump, it's going to translate into...
When you say bump, they hit you.
They hit me, essentially. They hit me. So they hit me from the side, boom. And as I jump out of the moped, I kind of...
you saw it coming.
Yeah. And I kind of like moved to the side. I did the worst thing you can do in a motorcycle crash, which is extend your arms. I extended my arms, and it's a natural instinct or reflex that we have. Roll. Yeah, I didn't tuck and roll, definitely. Yeah. So I extended my arms, boom, fell, rolled a little bit, stood up. It's like, son of a bitch, like, that sucks. So like, it was like 6 a.m., so the person said, are you okay? I was like, you just hit me. And then they left.
They hit and run.
They left, They left. Because I was walking, and they were like,
yeah, but you still can't do that. That's like illegal.
Yeah, so they left, and I'm like, shit, I have this test right now. So what I did is I picked up the moped from the middle of the parkway, of the street.
And nobody saw this because it was early.
Yeah, it was super early. It was like 6 a.m.
And you didn't have time to call anybody because you were like, I got a test.
I got a test at 7 a.m., and it's the most important test. So I tried to lift the moped up. I was like, damn, I cannot do it. Like, I was struggling to lift it up. I was like, I was shaking a little bit as well from the fall. So I was like, I'm probably nervous or whatever. So I tried to lift it, and I couldn't lift it. So this guy stops. I think the guy's name was Nico. I don't remember. He's like, hey, do you need help? What happened? I was like, dude, I just fell. And
you didn't tell him somebody?
No, because I didn't have insurance either, health insurance. So the last thing I wanted was to call an ambulance or anything like that. So I was like, dude, forget about it. Like, I don't have money to do this right now. So
in time, because I got a test.
I got a test, yeah. So the guy actually helped me lift the thing up, and we just threw it in the grass. And he's like, you need help? I was like, dude, just get me to the school. I got a test at 7. So the guy actually was very nice. He dropped me in school. I'm walking around with I had jeans on, and the pocket was hanging like this. The pocket was hanging. I was like, shit, I have so much pain in my elbows right now. My elbows were hurting a lot. And I couldn't bend the right elbow. My elbow was like
Which is what you write with?
Yeah, essentially. So I had my right elbow wasn't bending. I was like, oh, this is not good.
Was it swelling at this point?
It was swelling. Yeah. But I had a jacket. I had a jacket on top of my shirt, so I couldn't take it off because it hurt. So I just kept walking like that. And then my hands were all scratched up because I didn't have gloves. And I get to the test. It was a written test first. And I couldn't hold the pen. I was like, damn, this is very hard. So I took the paper. It was all covered in blood. Just patches of blood throughout the paper.
Did you not tell your professor?
No. I just walked in. I was like, all right, let's do it.
It's such a man thing.
And I had prepared for it. I was ready to go. Yeah. So I grabbed my wrist like this. I took a little pencil, and I started filling the bubbles as much as I could. Finish it up, bloody, gave it in.
Did he ask what was going on?
He didn't care. Nobody cared. And then I go to the next test, which is the practical, which is a very important one. And I showed up, and my partner, because you had to do the test with a partner, he's like, what the heck happened? He was my roommate as well. It's like, no, I just, I fell in the...
You still didn't tell him somebody hit you?
No, I was like, no, I fell in the motorcycle. It's there. And then my other buddy, who was my best man at my wedding, he lived through that little hill that, close to that hill where people come down. He's like, Bichon, are you all right? Like, I see your moped is right here in the grass. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm in school right now. I just had an issue, an accident, whatever. So, but are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm okay. So we get to the practical test, and I asked the professor, an orthopedic, she was a chiropractor, but she focused on orthopedic diagnosis. I said, hey, I had a fall, and it's not feeling great right now. Like, it's hurting a lot. And she literally did this. I was like, she asked me, where does it hurt? I was like, it hurts in both elbows. She literally took her hand and tapped it. And if there's a fracture, that vibration will hurt like, it will feel like a sting. So she just tapped it. And I was like, oh. And she's like, yep.
Fractured.
It's fractured. You got to go and get an x-ray, and you got to go to a hospital and urgent care and figure this out. So I went to...
That's fascinating. Yeah. Like, so just the bone right here.
Just tapped it, yeah.
So if you just go like that,
you'll feel it. Or if you have a vibrating, like a tuning fork, you get it vibrate and just put it on the bone. The vibration will elicit sharp pain.
Have you ever done that to help somebody test it?
Yeah, and thankfully I haven't found a fracture yet. But
there you go.
But most people walk in and they're like, "Is it fracture?" I was like, "I don't know. We'll tap it."
Nope.
Yeah,
good to go.
Right. So we took an X-ray in a chiropractor's office around the area, and they adjusted me, everything else. So I took the disc and I gave it to my radiology professor. I was like, "Hey, can you see anything in the X-ray?" He looks at it. He said, "You have fat pad sign." So fat pad sign is that when you have a radial head injury, there's a pad of fat literally in the back of the elbow that compresses. And it shows up in the X-ray. I don't remember if it was black or very white, but he said you have fat pad sign on both elbows. So this is a potential sign that you fracture both radiuses. And it was not you know, you couldn't see the fracture very well. But the moment you took it to, you have more imaging done, you can actually see the radial head. So the radius is this bone right here, and the head is like rounded this way. So it was cracked through the middle in both elbows. So I went to an ortho, and the ortho said, I pay out of pocket for that visit, and I didn't tell my parents about it because they told me not to get the motorcycle. They said, don't get it. You're a chiropractor. If you mess up your arms, you're done for the day. So I went to an ortho.
They might have been correct.
They were correct. So I went to the ortho. He said, there's two ways we can go around this. This one I think needs surgery. Because if that radial head doesn't attach together, you're going to have a big issue. We're going to have to probably put a screw on it, put a cast, and you're done. And the other one will probably need a cast as well. I was like, oh, bro, like two casts at the same time? Are you kidding me? Yeah, like I'm a chiropractor. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to live in two casts. So I asked him, it's like, can we do slings? So you could, but again, there's a risk that it doesn't heal properly. So I slinged it. I was not going to pay for a cast. I was not going to pay for surgery. And I was definitely not going to ask my parents for money for that. So I'm just walking around with two slings like this.
So you never did surgery or anything?
Nope, never did surgery.
You know, that makes a lot of sense because you told me that you actually recently fixed one of your elbows. You want to share about
with
that real
Shockwave
quick?
therapy.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
After I had that injury, which was back in 2014, I went to a chiropractor for years. They would adjust it and they would help me with the elbow.
So chiropractic did help you heal.
It got me a lot of the range of motion back because it was just like it wouldn't bend. It would hurt like hell. I lost a lot of the strength in it and I couldn't adjust for almost like 6 months.
Oh, wow. But luckily you were in school and not,
So I've still had, even after then, my elbow would hurt in the mornings. If I slept like this, in the morning will lock up. So you heard it? Yeah, same thing. That was great. So literally, it will lock up, and as I was stretching, it would do that loud pop sign, and then it would open up. So it's very painful, especially when it's cold, or if I'm adjusting manually a lot, it gets very painful. So that's another reason why I don't adjust a lot manually.
Which is also a really cool byproduct of something that happened in your life. We'll get to that in a minute, but go ahead, finish your story.
So I had that injury. I would say healed about 80% properly. The other
because of chiropractic.
Because of chiropractic for sure. Yeah. If it wasn't for that professor, that doctor, and again, I was a student, but I still paid for my visits, and I would go to a doctor as many times as she said. I think it was going like twice a week.
Now, do they give you a discount?
Yeah,
so you were able to do that.
Yeah, but I still paid for it. You know, there wasn't anything free, so I paid for the chiro. They helped me a lot, and you know, fast forward, now I'm here as a chiropractor in Pinellas Park, and you know, I have my issues. It gets very tight. I'm working out. Push-ups are tough. Just doing weights in general, after a while, it gets very stiff and painful. So I tried this machine called Shockwave therapy, which is acoustic wave therapy.
Which I gotta give your wife props on this. She actually is the one who kind of got
it
to
first.
You, right? She was like, "Hey, you need to see this."
She tried it first, and she's like, "Man, this is miraculous." I was like, "All right, I'll try it." So I went to a guy in Puerto Rico, so about an hour from here. He had the machine. I was like, "All right, try it out." I was like, "Just hit the elbow as hard as you can. This thing is just filled with scar tissue. It doesn't move. Let's hit it." Dude, he hit it super hard, and he was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, hit it. Go for it."
Most people would be in tears, and you're like, "Yeah, be fine."
He was concerned that it would, like, you know, create more damage. It's like, no, go for it. So he hit it, and man, my elbow felt the best it's felt in years. I was like, I gotta get this machine, so I bought it.
now you're.
I bought it, and we did it a few times, and now my elbow, I did it about 4 months ago, and it's just felt the best it's felt in a while, and I don't get that locking sensation in the mornings. Yeah. And I have more range of motion. and I don't get the stiffness as often.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about that real quick, because your office, something that I appreciate about you guys is you don't just have, you adjust, obviously, but beyond adjusting, you also have several other machines that help people who have some issues that need some specific things. Can you just share real quick the services that you guys do offer and kind of just briefly touch on what they're good for?
I mean, chiropractic is always going to be the pivot foot, right? Exactly. That's the foundation, because if the chiropractic adjustment is all about making sure that your brain is able to talk to the rest of the body. So that's the pivot foot. Now, in order for us to speed up the healing process, we got to add certain things. And in our office, we're going to use spinal decompression, which I think it's game changer for people who have back issues, sciatica, disc problems, because it opens up the joint and it helps the disc heal over time. The second machine that we have is the Shockwave machine, which I always said, that's another shiny object, and it's in a year from now.
It's for people who can't really do adjustments.
Exactly, that can adjust, and we'll get that machine, it'll make money, and then 2 years later, another thing is going to come around. But I ended up buying it. I was like, I really believe in this thing. I think this could help a lot of people.
And something I appreciate about you is you don't just go buy things, you try things
on
yourself first. And you said, if this isn't proven, if there isn't science behind it, if it's not something that I would do for me and my family, I'm not going to do it.
I try it, make sure it works, and it has to be aligned with my philosophy.
Correct.
Because it has to, at the end of the day, anything that I do in my office has to work with the body's innate ability to heal itself. If it doesn't, if it's a contradiction from that, I don't do it. For example, I know people that do injections in their office or whatever, PRP or stem. If it's outside in, I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean,
like inside out.
It's great. I see these integrative clinics or medical clinics where they have a chiropractor and a surgeon. It's like, why would a chiropractor work under the surgeon? Why would the surgeon work with a chiropractor? I mean, I know there's a time and place, but for me, it's a huge contradiction.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to help this person as much as we can. If we cannot help them, then we'll refer you to the surgeon.
Yes.
But working under the same roof, I was like, what is that? Yeah. So it has to be aligned with our values and what we believe in. And, we added Shockwave and Decomp, and it's been game changer for the patients. There's a lot of things that we could potentially add. It's just, I'm like, why would I do that?
No, that's awesome that you add slow and careful, always with the end in mind.
I've been in practice 9 years. I graduated in 2016. In 9 years, the most I've added was decompression and Shockwave.
And those were both relatively recent.
Yeah. About a year in. Yeah. Right. So for 8 years, I only did chiropractic, and we helped tons of people. And I was actually thinking the other day, I was like, if somebody ever asked me, what's the craziest story or the best testimonial or change that you see in a patient, I couldn't remember. There's been a lot of them. Oh, yeah. But a lot of the crazy testimonials that I recall from my 9 years of experience, they were all done with chiropractic only. Yep. Nothing else. Yep. Nothing else.
I was just listening to a bunch of your testimonials the other day, and I was like, which you can find on your YouTube channel as well. And some of them are absolutely insane.
They're crazy, right?
Like going from not being able to walk to being able to, they walk 30 minutes a day, going from brain fog, can't think, to all of a sudden I'm clear on everything. It's just crazy stuff. And not just about pain.
Yeah, it was all kinds of conditions, and I just couldn't remember a lot of them. You're in practice for a while, so you forget. But
it becomes almost common.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I expected.
You're like, why wouldn't that happen?
But we've seen a lot of cool stories over time.
Well, let me ask you this, because I want to touch on this because I think it's important. You said, hey, because of my elbow and because of what has happened to me, I don't do a lot of manual adjustments. And there's several different ways of chiropractic. I don't know that people realize that there are, but there are. And because of the situations, again, unplanned things in your life kind of led you to different things. You use a little bit different of a technique. And I would love for you to take a couple minutes and share what that is. Maybe you already were going to do it before you even hurt your elbow. I don't know. I would love to hear that. And just kind of what it is and why you chose that. Yeah.
So we use in our office a technique called torque release technique. This guy, who was a medical doctor and also a chiropractor, he said, we have a lot of techniques in chiropractic. Is there a way that we can condense all of them and get the most important parts of each technique into one? So he created it, torque release technique. And when they created the technique, they wanted to see which were the most common patterns of issues that they would see in patients. And they wanted to adjust it to see what happened. The problem was that when they're doing the research in Miami, they couldn't get the same chiropractor to come in to do the same adjustment every single time with the same vector, frequency, speed. So they had a lot of variability. So they said, we got to come up with a tool, with an instrument that can do the same thing over and over again.
Because otherwise everybody will be different.
It would have not been reproducible, right? So he starts dealing, he finds this tool that was designed to break molars for dentistry.
It does kind of look like a dentist tool.
So it was designed to break a molar back in, I don't know, the 60s. So he takes that and he said, let's put a rubber tip in it. Yeah. And he starts inventing with this instrument. He has the dental tool with the rubber tip. And now he's like, now we got to figure out the consistency. How can we get this to be every single time the same adjustment? So he's looking at a movie, and this is him telling the story, right? He's looking at a cowboy movie, I believe, or a veteran movie, and he looks at somebody, steps on a landmine, and it goes off. He's like, what if we create a mechanism that works like a landmine, that the moment it feels a certain pressure, it fires? So the integrator, which is the instrument that we use, not only is it a dental tool, but it has a rubber tip. What's crazy about the rubber tip is it has the same consistency as the fleshy part of the hand. Yeah. Same consistency. And then it has a springs in it that you load the instrument, and once it reaches a predetermined pressure, it always fires at the same pressure. So now you can have the same adjustment every single time. The reason I started using that technique is because the guy that saved my grandmother used the same instrument. Okay. So I knew I was going to use it already.
So prior to even hurting your elbow, you already knew it.
I already knew I was going to use torque release technique and the integrator.
Because that is a more precise mechanism. And so tell us like a little bit, for those people who are listening, who are like, okay, I thought chiropractic was chiropractic. Tell me a little bit about why you believe, other than it worked with your grandmother, why you believe that it is a better process and the results that it kind of gets for people.
Yeah. So first, so there's two parts of it. So with manual adjustments, what you're trying to do is break scar tissue, or what they called adhesions, right? Which is tissue that healed, but it didn't heal properly. Right. And because of that, the joint doesn't move very well. So with the manual, you'll get in there, crack it, and, open it up.
And some people love the big crack thing. You'll see it all over YouTube. Like
crack addicts. Crack addicts. Yeah. So they love it. But the instrument, the cool thing about it is, and then the other part when you're adjusting manually is that people tense up. So you kind of have to break through that, and et cetera.
And you can get hurt because you're trying
to force it, So the instrument, was cool about it is, number one, it was way faster than the hand. And as the speed would increase and the instrument would hit the joint, it would actually elicit a neurological response. It would almost like fire the nerve, essentially, or kind of activate the nerve. And the cool thing about the instrument is that you're able to move it like a pen and shoot it in different vectors that your hand would. It's hard for your hand to do certain things, but with the instrument, you were able to fire in 2 dimensions.
That's funny. I had a chiropractor explain it once to me that, like, manual is kind of like when you're painting with a big brush.
Exactly.
Like, and you're just rolling like a canvas in the background. But tonal, which is the instrument, is a tonal type of instrument. Some people use their fingers, but the instrument is like a fine paintbrush doing the details.
It's just specific, right?
It's the details.
And that's the difference of chiropractic and you cracking your neck at home.
Right.
That's not specific. With the instrument, you're hitting literally an area that you have an intention to fix. So one of the cool things that the instrument has, so not only are you able to hit the joint from the back and from the side, but the cool thing that the doctor created was that it had also torque. Because a bone moves... Torque release, yeah. So the bone moves in 3 dimensions. So if a bone shifts back and to the side, you can fix it by hitting it. But what if the bone moves back to the side and then wedges?
You can shift it.
With the instrument can actually go like this.
Okay.
And fix the wedges, where the hands, you might be able to do it, but it's extremely hard.
Well, and it's almost an artist at that point. You may have some chiropractics who practice tonal, and I've experienced some of them who are very, very skilled with their hands.
Exactly.
But that is not reproducible.
Not reproducible, and then that doctor would be the only person that can do that.
And if he's gone or he has a moped accident, you have a problem.
You cannot get the same results. So that was a big benefit of using the instrument, that you could get reproducible results. You could get another doctor that does the same technique and produce similar results as well. Obviously,
the more you do it, the better you are at it.
Exactly.
But still.
Because again, there's technicians and there's artists, right? Yeah. A technician is the one that's able to follow step by step what you got to do. But in chiropractic, just like in medicine and any healing art, that will take you to a certain spot. But at some point, the intuition has to come in, and the artistry part has to come in and get outside of the box.
The cool thing about what you do and with the instrument is you can have somebody who's coming out of school who is still better than somebody who's doing manual coming out of school.
Yeah.
Because the initial part, you can get there faster, the initial part. And then after that, the nuance part is when you have that experience.
And some people, some people are still, a lot of patients still want manual. You still want that feeling.
And you all do both?
I'll do both, if they need to. And we'll educate the patient. But I think the problem with chiropractors in general is that we've done a great job at selling the product instead of selling the result.
Yeah.
So selling the product as you go in for the crack.
Yeah.
Selling the result as you go in there to get better.
Yeah.
We sell the result. We don't sell the product.
And you feel like that tonal with the torque release gives patients better results. Tell me, what can people expect when they get tonal? Like, what is it that's going to be better for
They're
them?
not going to feel the crack feeling where it's like, oh
sore.
my God. But you're not going to be as sore, number one. Number two, you're going to notice a change in your physiology where you're going to be a little bit more at ease, relaxed, because your nervous system, we're usually going to work on two areas, neck and lower back, just because they're very connected with the parasympathetic nervous system. And then your body's going to shut down, blood pressure is going to go down, sugars go down, etc. So we get to see a change in physiology very quickly. Most people, after their first adjustment, they sleep better as well. The body goes into a reset stage, essentially. And the other part is the more you do it, you kind of see a progressive change all the time. Yeah. The patient's like, not only is the pain going away, but I'm sleeping better, have better energy, better mood, etc. Because we're working with the brain.
I feel like, too, you guys, with the tonal and with the torque release like you do, you can hit the nervous, like the cracking, it's going to align your back and help with the nervous system to a certain extent. But when you're you're going, and you've done it to us before, you're like, I'm going to hit this little thing right here, and this is connected to this, which is going to do this, which is going to do this. And so it's that precision that can get the results. And that's why I think you guys don't just do pain.
Exactly.
Because cracking might get rid of the pain, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can help and work with pregnancies and brain fogs and autoimmune diseases and neuropathy and all sorts of different things.
Exactly. So I think the technique plays a huge role. And even I've had associates come to my office, doctors that are new from school, that didn't necessarily believe that was possible, and they started doing it. And when they started doing it and they started to see the miracle stories coming in, they're like, oh my God, this actually works. I was like, I know. I went through the same feeling at some point. So it's insane. And I wish more patients would give it a chance. Yeah. Because it's not the tool per se. You can go to a chiropractor and they can have the same tool and go like all over the place, but you got to use the tool with the right analysis. Yeah. If you don't have the right analysis, then the tool is as good as the person that holds it, Always. And that's the challenge. So people have preconceived notions like, oh, you're going to hit me with that tool that doesn't do anything. So yeah, but we're going to hit the right place.
It may not feel like a lot and it may not sound like a lot, but it will, So tell me real quick, we're kind of coming to our end of our time, but tell me a little bit about Abundance Chiropractic, how it came to be. You didn't just graduate Life College and just open and practice right away. Kind of what was your vision for it? What still is your vision and the mission of Abundance?
So when I was in chiropractic college and I was about to graduate, I always said, I'm going to work for myself. Because I wanted to do things a certain way. I wanted to deliver the same experience that my grandmother had. Crazy stories in a very cool, atmosphere, etc. So I wanted to do something very specific. And when I graduated, I wanted to go back to Puerto Rico. I was like, I want to be there. My people speak Spanish, the culture in general. Yeah. And I went down there. And actually, on purpose, I didn't take two things. Okay, I didn't complete a PT, physiotherapy board that you need in the United States to practice in 45 states. So I was like, I'm not coming back, so I'm not going to take it. I was trying to put some barriers so I couldn't come back. The second thing that I didn't do is I was 2 credits short from completing a bachelor's.
Really?
Yeah, 2 credits short. I was like, I'm not going to complete it. Because in Puerto Rico, you could practice chiropractic with a doctorate, a pre-med, with the 4 main tests of the boards. Gotcha. And not need to complete your bachelor's. I was like, I'm not going to do it.
So you can actually get your master's before you get your bachelor's in chiropractic?
Well, not master, the doctorate. Doctorate. In chiropractic, yeah. In certain states.
That's fascinating.
And Puerto Rico was one. Florida, you needed everything. You needed the doctorate, the bachelor's, the 4 boards, PT board, plus a jurisprudence test.
So you're 2 credits short and a test short.
Yeah, and I didn't want to come
and
back.
You're good.
And I went down to Puerto Rico, went through the hoops. I was about to open, had a location. We're working on the building plans, etc. And Hurricane Maria hit. I was like, son of a bitch. Maria, I had never been in a hurricane.
This is Cat 5 one?
Cat 5, yeah.
I heard you tell stories about being in it, but I didn't realize you were in the process of opening a chiropractor.
Yeah, I was almost, Maria hit in September, August of this is 2017. So August 2017, we're looking at the space, we're getting everything ready to roll. And the hurricane hit. And I have been in hurricanes before, but they were usually category 1s. And it felt almost like a party. It's like, all right, we're gonna do this, hang out in the rain, and you name it. But category 5 was different. It was like a nonstop wind and rain for 8 hours straight almost, and we lost power and water, which we knew would happen. That was standard. But for example, a lot of our families, they got power back 6 months later.
Yeah, because you're on an island.
You're on an island.
You don't have like down here in Florida. We get
you get trucks from.
You get like there's literally hundreds of trucks coming to save you as the hurricanes come in.
Exactly. No, there you were by yourself. And Puerto Rico, the infrastructure sucked back then.
It's not great.
So we end up. Hurricane Maria hits. I was like, this is not gonna work. So we gotta leave. And I didn't want to leave, but my mom says, I'll get you guys plane tickets.
So this is you in
Puerto Rico.
No, were you with Hennessy's at that point? Okay.
Hennessy's was already,
Where did you meet her in college?
I met Hennessy's 2016, so my last year of doctorate, 3 months before graduating.
No, was she just living in Atlanta? Or?
She worked in Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay, so she did not go to life college.
I tried to. We met through Facebook, and
okay.
And my first instinct was like, we need more chiropractors. That was the mindset back then. My mindset back then. I think before I go out with this gal, I might be able to convince her to become a chiropractor.
He's an evangelist. He's literally like, everyone needs to be a chiropractor.
So I told her, let's get your transcripts in from DePaul University. And
wait, have you even gone out with her before you're telling
I don't think so. I think this was the first conversation.
You're like there in Facebook Messenger chat. Hey, before we go out, can I get your transcripts?
Literally. So we got the transcripts. I gave her a tour of the school. She met the president back then because I worked.
She's like, are we on a date or am I on a school tour?
You're getting recruited. And back then I worked with the president's office, so she was able to meet the president.
She's from Puerto Rico too.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So 2016, and I, when I was graduating, I told her I'm going back to Puerto Rico. My intention is not to have a relationship. Like I'm done. Like I got to work right now. She's like, fair enough. And then a month in, I was like, you know what? I might pursue this. So again, that was 2017. I don't know.
So she came back with you.
Yeah, she came back to Puerto Rico.
And you guys were going to start practice together.
No, she was going to do her own thing.
She was going to do her own thing. Okay.
And then when Hurricane Maria hit, we left the island. I could only practice, when I came back to the States, I could only practice in 3 states.
Which 3?
South Carolina, Colorado, and one that I cannot remember. Because we're the only 3 states that didn't require a bachelor's.
So you were looking for a job in one of those 3 states.
That was it.
So where'd you end up?
Because I didn't have a bachelor's and I didn't have the PT board. I was like, it bit me in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew a guy from school that had a great practice. Torque release technique, family practice, neurological focus, high volume, which they saw a lot of people. He lived in Colorado, and I emailed him, straight on. So, hey, I'm looking for a position. Would you be willing to go through an interview process? It's like, actually, I just had a baby, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I flew in 3 weeks later to Colorado, met him, Fort Collins, never been to Colorado. And he had a great practice, and I said, this is a great opportunity. Not only am I going to practice in a practice that looks a lot of what's in my brain and my vision, but it's going to be with some guy that I trust and I respect as well. So we moved to Colorado, practiced for 2 years, high volume. We were seeing 700 to 800 patients a week.
Wow.
Which is, if you think about it, I mean, you've been to our practice, and it looks busy, but we see a third or a fourth of what they saw back then.
That's a lot.
We would see about 200, 220 people a day. And I always get this question from people. It's like, man, you cannot give good care. You're seeing that many people. And I would say that my best care was there.
Yeah.
Because I was focused. It was just, there was no room for talking about sports or any. It was just, you're here. You're the person I need to take care of. And it was.
That's also idea that people have that to have good chiropractic care, it's going to take 40 minutes in an office, because guess what? The medical system, you go and it's a 40-minute, by the time you check in to the time you leave, it's a 40-minute process.
Yep.
And that's not the same.
No, this was different. And I looked at research papers because I questioned myself. I was like, am I giving the best care I can give? And there was a study that I found. They took 6 hospitals. I think it was a study in New York. It took hospitals that were very busy and not busy. And what they found is that the busier hospitals had better outcomes.
I believe that.
And the reason was because the doctors had more practice on certain procedures. And number 2, the quality was way better. There wasn't any room for sepsis or infections, etc.
Yeah.
Because they were like completely focused versus the hospitals that didn't have that much repetition. Number 1, the doctors were not as good. And number 2, there was more room for error.
It's that one law that you always get things done in the allotted amount of time you have.
Yeah, exactly.
I forget what the law is.
If I do
Parkinson's law.
Exactly. So we were high volume. It was insane. I mean, so many people. And my best stories are from when I was in high volume. The changes were crazy. So after 2 years, Hennessy said...
Was she helping at that point?
So she used to work at Mattress Firm in the beginning. Because my thought was always like, do your thing. I'm not going to push you to work with me.
You sucked her in, didn't you?
I kind of did, you know. So you didn't...
It was the Tour of Life University.
She ended up not... She said, I'm not going to do a chiropractic. I was like, well... It's like, if you want to work with us, it has to come from you.
Yeah.
And you still have to go through an interview process. Like, this is your thing.
So I'm not going to... your wife?
I'm not going to... No, he did. I didn't.
Okay, he did.
So she started working with us. She was an assistant for 2 years there. Yeah. After 2 years, we said, I think it's time for us to open our own thing. So in the process of figuring out where we were going to practice, the options were Puerto Rico or somewhere close to Puerto Rico, so Florida. And she had been to St. Pete years before, and she came hanging out with a few friends, and she said, there's this spot called St. Pete, which I think you should check it out. I was like, all right, that's fine. So 2019, we fly in, Frontier flight.
Gotta love Frontier.
Yeah, gotta love Frontier, 6 a.m. We show up at 6 a.m.
Uncomfortable seats at 6 a.m.
Terrible. It's crazy that 7 years later, their seats are worse.
They are.
So
I think now they're going to have like standing up planes or something.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
It's terrible. So we came to St. Pete, and as we're driving through the bridge, it was insane because there were dolphins jumping on the side of the bay. I was like, is this real?
Is this real? Man, a movie.
I know. And I love St. Pete. It was just so nice. It was just so different. It had a different vibe. It reminded me a little bit of Puerto Rico with the beach, etc. So I said, all right, this is it. So we looked at the map. We said, where's the middle of the map? Where's more accessible? Pinellas Park. Yep. So we said, all right, we're going to open an office in Pinellas Park. Nice. We were confident that it was going to work. We said, we love what we do. I think we're successful in what we do. We have the energy to help people. And, we started talking to banks. And we're just like, hey, we need this much money to open this practice. And everybody told me that you need a little bit of money, collateral. You need experience and a business plan. I had the business plan. We had a little bit of money for collateral, and I had the experience. Okay. Called the first bank, Tampa Bay Bank. I don't remember the name.
Tampa Bay Bank, number 1.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked to them. They're like, no, this is a great idea. Excellent. Send me a business plan. Yeah, this looks great. Week later, we get a call in Colorado, and they're like, we talked to the loan officer. They say it's not a good idea. It's like, all right, it is what it is. So I had a list of other banks. So we reached out to a few more banks. All of them said no. Bank number 16 said yes.
See, this goes back to what you said at the beginning. Resiliency.
I can keep going. So it was Bank 16 that gave us the money. Achieva
Nice.
Credit Union.
Nice.
And it was crazy because when I talked to the officer, the loan guy or the VP, I don't remember, from SBA, he said, I funded a chiropractic office that works very similar to yours. I feel confident about this. I was like, right? I know. So the guy lent us the money, and we opened in 2020. We had a great plan. We were ready to roll. We're gonna change, Pinellas Park, and COVID hit, and our plans kind of got sidetracked. And it was a little bit of a bummer because I had already been through the hurricane first. I was like, this is the second strike. Like, there's no way we can strike out twice. And Hennis is the one that says, like, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's open it, and we'll see what happens.
I feel like you actually had an advantage, though, because you stayed open when other people didn't.
Everybody close. And it was crazy because the health department, when they were putting the banners in front of the doors, they skipped our office because they didn't know we were open. And to be honest, we didn't wear masks because, there was nobody there.
Well, yeah, and if you're only having a couple people at a time.
Yeah, and we didn't have much, but we built it, and it went so well. Yeah. And we created it wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't created on purpose, but it kind of worked out. And we attracted a specific person. They were usually people that, in that moment of COVID, they were anti-vax, they were anti-mask, they
believed in the body's ability to heal themselves.
Exactly, and they stood for freedom of choice.
Yeah. And
we were like, that is who we are. We just couldn't pinpoint what it was. But I did say, yeah, we stand for freedom of choice. That's who we are. And we believe that the body has the ability to heal itself. And people start showing up. So
if you had to describe Abundance now and kind of say what your mission is, what you're all about, and you did, obviously, freedom of choice is part of it, what would you say to somebody who's looking, hey, is this for me? Like, what are you for?
So our vision and our mission has changed over the years a little bit.
It always will, yeah.
But our goal right now is to make sure that people see chiropractic first, drugs second, surgeries third. The goal right now is to help people. We were huge in education when we started, but now even more. Gotcha. And we understood that it wasn't only about educating people about chiropractic, but we had to educate about everything, not only from chiropractic, but from food choices to habits to healthcare policy. Right. And that's why we educate so much right now. So
that's why you do this podcast.
Exactly. It's literally everything that
not
touches. Not
just because you need an extra couple hours of work to do everything.
Exactly. No, we're literally trying to change people's perception of healthcare in general, from the systematic point of view to the decision-making point of view.
All the internal points.
And it's gotten a little bit political over the years.
So it's
healthcare, right? And that we've had to work on that. So Abundance has changed over the years from being just a chiropractic office that only does chiropractic to more of a platform.
A leader in the industry.
Exactly.
That's teaching and sharing with people.
Exactly.
So that's amazing. Do you have any last words for people before you? I mean, that was great to hear your story.
Stay healthy. That's it.
It was great to hear your story. I appreciate it. And I know that it helped me understand you better, and I know that it helped everybody else to understand where you're coming from and why you do what you do. Yeah. So very, very cool.